Hello, this is John with Pacific Cloud IT. I'm here with Randy with tekRESCUE, a local cybersecurity expert. We are going to be talking about securing your remote workers from home. Randy?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're pretty excited about this finally happening. We were supposed to do it a little bit earlier, and I was at a client's and couldn't get away. John went ahead and did some live stream on his own, which, by the way, man, you did an amazing job on that. That was really awesome. I watched the content. I really liked it, but so glad to be here today. And I want to encourage everybody, if you are tuning in, be sure to like and share. We would really appreciate that. And also, if you want to, if you have questions or comments, go ahead and leave them. And supposedly the software will pick it up and we can answer them live while we're talking. So anyway, great to be here. Back to you, man. Let's get going.
All right. So we're going to be talking today about the securing your public networks. And ultimately, as a remote worker, these are things you need to be worried about. What are the risks when you're on networks? Wi-Fi networks is what we're talking about to begin with. So what are some of the things that we should be taking in consideration? Well, with Wi-Fi, we generally see a lot of people when they're working from home in coffee shops. And what are they doing to keep themselves secure? Well, some of the first thing they're doing is they're using hotspots as the solution. And that is what we've seen in the past. Other people are using VPNs to connect to their corporate networks. And that is an encrypted connection between those 2 points. And one of the best ways that I feel that people are going to be able to connect in is by creating a zero trust firewall living on that device to access the company data.
Yeah, so we've got this article that John found, and specifically talking about basically when you're out and about, right, John?
Yeah.
And basically, okay, so the title is a little bit, I don't know, like it's a sensational title, that's for sure. But how the hotbeds are, how public networks are basically hacker hotbeds. And, you know, for real, like if you use a hotspot, that's probably better than most of your public Wi-Fi's. A VPN's even better than that. So you mentioned zero trust firewall. Is that like a software firewall or what?
Yes. So with zero trust firewalls, it's instead of having a giant corporate firewall inside of your basically office or corporate office, if people are working from home, they don't have that. So there's actual firewall that actually lives on people's devices or endpoints to keep them secure. It's basically firewall as a service.
That's pretty awesome. So basically it would work the same way as a regular firewall, but it's software on their computer, like blocking traffic, only allowing certain connections. I think you mentioned zero trust. Like, what are you trusting or not trusting on that?
So with zero trust, you're ultimately not wanting to have anything connect to your machine except things that are specifically allowed by your corporation or IT provider.
And then everything else just basically falls into the bit bucket, if you will.
Yep. So that could be anything from printers to other people trying to connect to your machine, local area network. It could just be even your kids' computers can't connect to you, if you're working from home. So complete security and isolation from all other machines, except the ones that are specifically allowed.
Yeah, I would definitely say in the current environment where cybercrime is shooting way up exponentially, it appears. I would say that this third choice of a zero trust firewall is, I wouldn't even consider it like a choice. It's almost like mandatory if you're really going to be serious about being secure. Wouldn't you say?
I agree. I think that ultimately you got to think about what is the most secure thing for your employees when they're connecting at their home, coffee shop or anywhere, and if they can have the same level of security on their device as they are in your corporation that you invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into firewall, and they can take that when they leave, suddenly a new lockdown, something happens, if they can take that security wherever they go, it's truly going to offer security on that device, not just when you're connected to company resources, but for anything that they take off the company and put on their machine.
Right.
And that's stuff we have to worry about. What is the risk on that? So
right.
These advanced firewalls help mitigate that risk. And we are living in a risk-based world right now, and we need to start mitigating some of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, not gonna lie, but this kind of makes my heart flutter, because it's something that we really need, and it's protection that we really need. And it's good to know that it's out there, and it's good to know that it's available to people that, for our customers and stuff that we can make available to them. Well, if you look down a little farther in the article, they warn in that first section of the article, they warn about Wi-Fi. And y'all, here's the deal. Over the next couple of weeks, we want to talk about keeping your remote workforce safe. Like 2 years ago, basically, the majority of people worked, brick and mortar. And then the lockdowns happened, and even companies that have been brick and mortar forever had to all of a sudden learn how to have remote workers, workers working from home, maybe working, who knows where, but not everybody was behind brick and mortar, like John was mentioning. And you have to break out of the mentality of brick and mortar and basically embrace the new reality of basically a workforce that's located over, not just in one area, but there's people at home. There's some people might be at work. They might be going back and forth. It's a big change. And this article is trying to talk about the dangers that we run into. This next section, they talk about about Bluetooth, and they mention a risk about Bluetooth called the Blueborn attacks. They say if exploited, the vulnerabilities can enable an attacker to take over devices, spread malware, or establish a man in the middle to gain access to critical data and networks without user interaction. A lot of stuff like that. Man in the middle basically means when a man in the middle attack, when a device that's basically bad comes between you and a trusted device and acts like it's that trusted device, and then takes your information and then leaks it off or uses it or whatever. But basically your information with a man in the middle attack, your information is no longer going between you and a secure on a secure channel, but it's being basically sidetracked. So they're talking about this Bluetooth vulnerability. The thing is, this Bluetooth vulnerability has been fixed for a while. If you have an iPhone, of the last couple of years, for sure, and it's updated, it's going to have mitigated for at least the Blueborn. If you have an Android, that's going to be a major brand like a Samsung or a OnePlus, and they're updated and they're putting out updates, so maybe not older than a couple of years, then you're probably already going to be where you have basically your phone's already patched this, basically. But they do say in this article that you should probably, as just a good, smart, secure person, when you go out in public, turn off your Bluetooth. And what's that other vulnerability that they mentioned, John?
Yes. So ultimately, the Blueborn attacks created, I think, a really big example of what Bluetooth can actually do to harm. The technology of Bluetooth can ultimately allow some data to be released. Well, something else that we're seeing right now is whenever you turn on the Find My Apple device feature. That's a feature where people are basically wanting to find their devices in case they get lost. Well, what that does is that's actually creating a mesh network of other devices that are be able to communicate with another, including sending over data that might be sensitive. So some devices could be configured to take that signal and grab your information and send it to a secure offsite server where they can basically start to create and populate this data. So turning that off is going to be something that's important, and that can be done through Bluetooth as well. So Bluetooth is something with security that you should be considering turning off when you're not using it. You shouldn't be leaving that on all the time. Even if your device is set as not discoverable, there still can be vulnerabilities. And people are coming up with more and more ways to use Bluetooth as something to infiltrate your devices.
Yeah, just the other day, less than 2 weeks ago, I was in the lobby of a major business in our area. I won't say the type of business because a hacker might hear and go take advantage of it. But not only was they had Wi-Fi, and they had a Wi-Fi, basically the access was open to the router. They also had open Bluetooths, and I took a picture of it on my phone and I uploaded it to my company chat. We were making jokes like, hey, get on the Bluetooth speakers and, change the music or whatever. I mean, we're not ever going to do that kind of stuff because, we're the good guys, if you will. But these kind of things, like, people don't think about this kind of stuff. And the attacks are becoming so ubiquitous that we've really got to start looking at everything from a security standpoint. And I know the very, very first time I saw this feature on there's something similar on a MacBook, like I turned it off. Like, I don't want people that are random, like, trying to send me stuff and being able to even actually try to send me stuff. I don't want that connection with someone that I don't know or that I don't trust. So this next section, they get into NFC, and they call it worrisome NFC. So NFC is just basically, the NFC stands for near field communication. It's something similar to Bluetooth, except that it's probably even, has less range or whatever. But it basically allows devices to connect with each other. You can have NFC coming out of all kinds of devices. I'm pretty sure the new little Apple tag thing uses NFC, but it's also worrisome. Why are they saying that it's worrisome?
Well, I think first off, people are using NFC a ton to send over secure information, including payment information. So I think with that, people understanding they're trusting this NFC with their money, with their sensitive data, and they don't realize this can be intercepted. People can hack into this. People can run by and ultimately get access to some of this sensitive information from basically creating a receiver to receive that information. So ultimately, the NSA is suggesting a couple things you should be doing. They think you should disable this. If you have a device that allows this to be disabled, you should be disabling it. You shouldn't be even bringing it near other electronic devices you don't know. So if a device that you see somewhere, unless you configure it, unless you trust it, it's possible it could be taking that information and storing it somewhere. It could be taking your sensitive data. Some people share information like passwords or their debit card numbers or their bank account information over this NFC feature. So if you're doing something like that, you might want to stop. You might want to think about, what is my NFC chip communicating out? Should I be doing this? This is ultimately a very convenient feature. As you know, I mean, sometimes I just want to go by and just tap my payment on things. But with that convenience, with things being made easier, what is that doing for your security? Are you going to pay for it in the long run? Something I learned about even today in researching this is that even a cell phone charger could be, the one that's not an original one, could be configured to do something differently. You could just be trying to charge your phone off some public charger, and you don't know necessarily what it's connected to. You may trust this thing to charge your phone, and it's just sending data out. So these are all concepts that a lot of people don't think about. I certainly didn't a few years ago, that's for sure.
Yeah, man, it makes me want to turn everything off on my phone. That's for sure. So yeah, so I did notice, and I don't know if it is a feature or if it happened by accident, but I did notice the last couple of times I went to use Google Pay, I had to turn my NFC on to use Google Pay. So if that's not a feature that they have already, then they need to probably roll it out pretty soon, it sounds like. I wonder how they're going to handle like the Apple Watches, the OnePlus watches, Samsung watches, all of those work with Bluetooth. I wonder how they're going to handle, if you're going to turn your Bluetooth off, then you're going to get weird messages on your watch. And then also, is your watch with NFC in your watch and with Bluetooth in your watch, is it going to be trying to communicate to some, rogue actor, if you will? So many things to consider that, when they first popped up with all this stuff, several years ago, they just didn't have to deal with. They didn't think about it. What do you think?
So I think that we are living in a world of the Internet of Connected Things. And with that IoT, we have a whole new layer of security concerns that are happening because of that. Everything is getting connected. I mean, your toaster might be on the Wi-Fi. What is the security behind that? With all these Alexas recording your voice, what's the security behind that? So I think with all of these things that are creating convenience and productivity in our lives, is the data, I think as a business owner, you need to be thinking about, is this data going to hurt your business if it's leaked to the dark web? Is this going to hurt your business if because of this passwords come out, then now you're getting breached? Your data is now ransomed. What's going to happen to your business? And with all of these connected devices and your employees using them when they're now working from home, because you might be able to have a secure space in your office to stop this stuff. It's a controlled environment. When you send these people out to an environment that is not controlled, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and I think also there's a principle in security of basically using the least and then things that you don't use or that you don't need, turning them off, uninstalling them. And you may want to ask yourself, we ought to ask ourselves, do we really need a broom that's connected to the internet? I saw a meme going around. The broom was basically threatening to to ransom. if the person didn't pay a ransom, they were going to tell their social media that they connected their broom to the internet in the first place to embarrass them. But think about it. Do you really need an internet connected broom? Do you really need an internet connected toaster? Do you really need an internet connected microwave? Do you need Alexas and all those everywhere, all around your house? I mean, yes, they're convenient, but they do create a security risk, and maybe it's not something that's actually worth it. So, this kind of begs a question that I think we ought to look at is with all of these risks, and we have employees that maybe they have company email on their phones. Maybe they're only using their phones for second level authentication, like when you go to log into Google and they send you a text. Maybe they're just using their phones for that. But maybe there's employees that are using their own laptops. What do we do if an employee doesn't turn off their Bluetooth when they're in public or turn off their NFC? What's our solution for that?
Well, I think that really as a business owner, you need to think about the risk and whether you need to put something in place to stop your employees from making mistakes. I mean, ultimately, your staff is going to want to do what's convenient to them, especially on their own devices. But if they're accessing company data, you as a business owner may need to have a policy put into place. Bring your own device policies are becoming more of a standard, and mobile device management, management of their computers, management of their phones. If it's a company phone, it should be required. If it's their device, there should be a way for you to manage their access to the company data. What if they leave the organization? How are you going to remove that software? How are you going to remove their connection? Mobile device management, or MDM, is a solution for this. Something that you and your organization should be thinking about.
Yeah, it's a good solution also. And you can see the pretty much right now 365, Microsoft 365 and Google Workspaces, used to be G Suite, used to be Google Apps. They change their name every like year or so, but bottom line, they're the two big players right now in this all-in-one basically solution for our work. And you can see them coming along with this, with exactly what you're talking about. You know, your data needs to be kept within your company. And even if you have like this little sliver of your data that you allow onto an employee's device, it needs to stay on that employee's device. And then, you know, if they leave the company, you need to be able to pull it back off of the employee's device. That doesn't really answer the question, though, of what if that device gets breached, you know? And I personally believe that your bring your own device, BYOD policies, they ought to include like a minimum stack of software, of security software that has to be on each device. And then they ought to have like a minimum, like, you can't use phones that are older than 2 years old. You know, they have to be Samsung, Apple, you know what I mean? Like limiting those down where you're less likely to have, you know, a breach. You know, if you're using an Android phone from 10 years ago, you know, I won't say any names, but like a company name that's kind of sketchy when you even hear it and it's not updated. And that thing's a security risk, you know, big time. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I encourage business owners to have up-to-date hardware, making sure they're working on a 3 or a 5-year replacement plan. Some of these security risks are basically going to be prevalent on old hardware. As hardware goes, I mean, people may not realize it's not just your operating system that needs to be updated. Your hardware can play a role in security as well. For phones, a lot of times they don't even allow you to have security, up-to-date security, until you start buying the newer phones. So having your employees using older phones, these are just some of the things you should, or computers, these are some things you should be addressing in your bring your own device policy. Security stack, all of that is have a minimum standard for your organization to make sure your security is of utmost priority, so that your data does not get leaked or ransomware or sold on the dark web or any of that.
Yeah, good points. So I think we're gonna probably wrap it up at this point, and I really appreciate everybody tuning in and good discussion today. John, do you have any famous last words for us today?
Well, I want you guys to know that we're going to be doing this next week. We're going to be going a little bit more into the zero trust environment and discussing what that means. The President of the United States is mandating this to businesses that do business with the government. So we're going to discuss that and how that's possibly going to be applying to your small business soon as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's next Tuesday. We're planning on looking into that. We'll do a little deep dive there, and we'll try to keep it at a level where if you're a business owner, it will make sense. And if you guys have questions, you know, you'll be able to ask them. And also on any of this stuff today, if you're watching this live stream, if you watched this far, first off, we really, really appreciate that. But also, if you have any comments or questions, be sure to put them wherever you see this. We're streaming to about 6 or 8 different platforms right now. So wherever it is that you see this, be sure to like it, leave a comment. If you have a question, we'll try to answer those questions and maybe even answer them live on our next live next week, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to sign off for now. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see y'all next week.